Okay. So I talked about Sitchin, and Jim Mars gives a summary of what Sitchin basically translated from the Sumerian text, and it comes down to a story of some extraterrestrials, basically, from a planet called Nibiru. Now, the Sumerians, to give them some credit, had very accurate representations drawn out of our solar system, including the relative sizes of the planets, including all of the planets, ones that supposedly weren't, discovered until the 1800s. So you have to give the Sumerians some credit. And the reason, another reason that it's relevant what the Sumerian tablets say is that they are the most ancient forms of writings that, from what I understand, that we have found. There are thousands of these tablets, only like 20% of them have been translated. Very few people can translate them, and Zacharias Sitchin is one of those people. So he's kind of taking them at face value. I like to compare it to the book of Genesis. I think even evolution can be compared to the book of Genesis. The order is much the same. But I'm not sure if I made this point in the last video, but like even if you watch the movie, it's a documentary with Ben Stein called No Intelligence Allowed. He goes through and he talks to all these scientists who've been chastised because they believe in intelligent design. And at the very end, he is in a debate with a scientist who is a pure, evolutionist, and gets the guy to openly admit that there is a part of our genetic code that is unspoken for. And so, it's all really just semantics that these people are arguing over, But so I talked about the junk DNA and such. I hope I didn't just repeat myself, but I'm going to just read to you a little bit out of this book, and I hope that you buy it. I'll put the link below so that he can get his due on this. But basically, it's this planet Nibiru. And what happened is it came through and crashed, one of its moons or something crashed into Tiamat, which is supposedly Earth, but it knocked a piece of Tiamat off, and that became the asteroid belt, and then the rest of it kind of coalesced into Earth, and then one of Nibiru's moons became our moon, which could explain how the moon got there, because there's a lot of controversy over that. Like, it doesn't seem to just to naturally come off the Earth because it's made of different elements, but it doesn't also seem like it could just appear there either. But basically there's this civilization from this planet Nibiru that is called the Annunaki, and Anunnaki just means they that came from the sky. So that's synonymous with Nephilim in the book of Genesis, they that come from the sky. And remember, of course, in Genesis it said that they saw the daughters of men were fair and mated with them. Well, what the Sumerians say is that these Anunnaki came here to get gold, hence this whole manna thing. Now, a year for them was 3,600 years to us. So that could explain why they might seem immortal to us, like gods, because they live longer. Now, let's just say that they hybridized with the humans here on Earth, and we had some Anunnaki DNA, just like the book of Genesis tells us. Then those people would live a long time. Now, in the book of Genesis, Yahweh said at some point that he limited our lifespan. He basically took away the manna, is what I'm coming to. And the manna is, of course, this orbitally rearranged monatomic element of these precious metals, including gold. I don't want to just exactly read straight out of it, but ironically, so it comes down to Enlil and Enki, and that's where it ties into basically the Gnostics versus the Christians, although I really think the Christians are victims of the Gnostics, just trying to confuse them. Like I said in a previous video, a lot of people, because of movies like Zeitgeist, which actually this guy wrote for that movie, and I feel bad because he's probably an atheist too, just like Eric von Daniken. But because of movies like that and archaeological discoveries, people are turning away from Christianity. Well, I think Christianity is mostly just incorrect anyway, and I think that the Apostle Paul is just a big fake. But I still am a follower of the Most High Creator, and the way that I differentiate between myself and the Gnostics, or really they're Luciferians, is I follow the Ten Commandments. And if there's someone trying to get me to do something and it goes against one of the commandments, then I consider that like a temptation that I try to resist. And if it's something that follows the dogma of do as thou will, or the end justifies the means, like it's okay to, you know, sanction all these people in Iraq because we're going to take out this dictator that we happen to put in power, you know, then I consider that of, you know, ORME or Lucifer or whatever you want to call him. And of course there are people that think Jesus and Lucifer are brothers. I think that's misguided too because Jesus is a fairy tale. Yahshua was a real person. Jesus as a story that was created as an amalgamation of pagan stories. So the theory here, though, about Enlil and Enki is that they were basically brothers. These people didn't want to mine gold. They thought it was too much work, so they hybridized, okay, with the earth mammals. Oh, that was a big scary bug. Jeez. And, see how many big scary bugs are around me? I'm under the tree for, like, to make a point, and I'm getting surrounded. So, okay, Anu, or On, or El, like as in we say Elohim, you know, duh, there's a connection there, depending on the source. The Anunnaki, they systematically colonized, and he had two sons, Enlil and Enki, which goes to this whole theory of Satan and Yahshua being brothers. All of the Anunnaki leaders were to assume the role of gods, or Nephilim, and C-Section made this correlation of Genesis to the Sumerian tablets, so I can't take credit for that, but I think that's cool. So one of these Nephilim was actually named Nazi, by the way. And I think the German occultists, I agree that they probably knew of that. But Enlil, okay, who would be synonymous with Lucifer, he was the mission commander, the ruler of this earth, the god of this world, which the Gnostics worship. And while Enki was the executive science officer, okay, there's an immediate and long-standing fight between them. And the firstborn, Enki, so he was older, but he was apparently considered lower because he had a different mother than Enlil, and so he wasn't royally whatever, I don't know. But it was Enki who led the first expedition to Earth. And in one script, he described his splashdown, but the basic is that one of them, if you correlate it to Genesis, one of them was like, in the Garden of Eden, one of them was saying, don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Just eat from the tree of life, because he believed that we weren't ready for this knowledge. And then Enlil, who would be synonymous with the Gnostic liberator, the light bearer, Lucifer, came in and said, no, 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 eat of it, it's good. So perhaps the science guy realized that we weren't genetically ready for that. I don't know. But then Enlil and his Nephilim, they just kept interbreeding to make them more genetically ready, so to speak. So the question is, with this orbitally rearranged monoatomic element, for me, you know, I call my business Eden Cultures. I want to get back as close to the Garden of Eden as possible. You know, we rent this land, but as soon as I can buy land, I'm going to be basically tilling that soil as much as I can. We're already composting and planting pomegranate and lemon and apple trees all around. But as soon as I own that land, I'm going to be doing that as much as I can. So I'm sort of looking for that tree of life. And so my question is, you know, morally, which is the manna? Is the manna the tree of life, or is it the tree of knowledge? And I don't really know. I know that the Ten Commandments don't preclude me from eating manna. So I'm going to just basically drink some grape juice and some aloe vera juice in the meantime, and secretly practice alchemy. No, I'm just kidding. Although I did really well at chemistry, but this is all just food for thought for you all. I don't know, what do you think? Would manna be equivalent to the tree of life or the tree of knowledge, or do you think they're the same thing? To me, it's very clear in Genesis that they are different. And so if you read trying to find, I had it marked in here, and then it just went, everything just went haywire. Somewhere in here it talks about manna, but basically, you know, manna came from the sky and it was a white powder, and that's basically what this ORME stuff is. And I'm not telling you to buy any from anyone on the internet because I don't really want your like insides to explode or anything. So, and I don't really want to do that either. But it is interesting, and maybe you want to look into this David Radius, I believe Hudson, the farmer who accidentally discovered it. Anyway, if you think I'm just a big mean heretic, then go ahead and unsubscribe. But I do believe that if you take all the planets and all the solar systems and all the galaxies, it is not just possible, it is highly probable that there is intelligent life out there besides us. And if you are that self-centered that you think that we're the only ones, then I don't know. I mean, how do you explain all the stuff in the Bible? So it's like either you believe in it or you don't. And atheism makes no sense to me because this all happened by chance. You know, the moon just happens to be the exact same size to cover the sun exactly when they line up. Come on. You know what I'm saying? What is all this junk DNA that we have? What is it for? Can it be activated? But the science in my head, someone who aced physics and microbiology and did really well in physical chemistry, I struggled a little bit through organic, but and I did well in biology and physiology. I see the science behind a single atomic element attaching to our DNA and acting as an antenna, and thereby changing the conformation of proteins. DNA isn't a protein, but it codes for proteins. And so, yeah, it's just all crazy food for thought, and I'm total whatchamadilly. So I'm not a Gnostic, but I do search for knowledge. But when it comes down to it, I don't do the end justifies the means. I don't play that game. It's right, and wrong is wrong. And the Ten Commandments are my law. And so, remember, the Jews, they knew the Hebrews, not the Ashkenazis, which I was learning the difference between that too. The Ashkenazis never actually crossed over, so they're not called Hebrews. That's who, like, the Rothschild guy apparently is related to, but he wasn't a Hebrew, a Semite. He wasn't, like, a real, in that way. They knew their God was real because he punished them. You know, they had the manna. They knew he was real. They saw him on Mount Sinai. It's crazy. All right, have a nice day.